Hi, I'm Anne. Welcome to or welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a book tag, and yes, I'm well aware that it's not Tuesday. And yes, I'm also aware that I probably should have posted this Tuesday because there was no reason for me not to. So this is the GarbAugust Trashy book tag. It was created by CriminOlly, and he actually tagged me in the original creation. Am I technically taking part in GarbAugust? Yes. Have I read any trash this month yet? No. However, I will be. My reading is way behind schedule because I got sick for like the first week. Number one is trashy books are often dismissed by critics. What's a book which is regarded as trash which you think has artistic value? I looked through Goodreads' list of what exactly is a trash book because I don't quite know exactly what would be defined as a trash book, because some books, obviously they're trash, but other books, it runs a fine line. So the book I picked out is a book that I read a while ago, and it's very popular, and it's Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. And this was made into a TV series. The TV series is quite good, but I've only watched the first 2 seasons, so don't know if it gets bad after that. But this series follows this young woman from the 1940s who travels magically back in time to 18th century Scotland. And of course she meets this handsome Scottish Highlander. So it's part romance, part time travel, part fantasy, historical fiction. It's quite a mix of things, and I would consider it in many ways trash, but I think in many ways it is a level above trash because it is a beautifully written book. Now, I was not a massive fan of it. I can see the value in it, and I think it's a very well-written book. However, it's not my cup of tea. Number 2, critics often love books with extreme or challenging content. Which critically praised book did you think was trashed? Don't know if this how critically acclaimed it was, but it was a Goodreads choice winner of 2021, so I would say technically it was acclaimed, though how much do we actually trust Goodreads at this point? And that's The People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. I'm not a huge fan of Emily Henry. I've realized I just don't like her books that much. Everything I've read by her has been mediocre at best. This one was okay, but I didn't like it that much. And yeah, I feel like it wouldn't necessarily be considered trash, but to me it feels very trashy. Number 3, not everyone approves of trashy books. What's a book you wouldn't read in public? Weird choice, because I feel like there's quite a few like easy picks for this. If they have like a erotic picture on the front, you're not going to read that in public. But for me, I went more of like a social and political reason, and that is I would not read in public certain political books. So my example that comes to mind is Mein Kampf by Adolf Hitler, because I think there would be a negative reaction in public if people saw me reading it in public. I am a historian. I'm very much interested in different political ideologies. So I see myself reading things like the Communist Manifesto or Mao Zedong's Book of Quotations, which I actually own, Red Book of Quotations. I also would read Mein Kampf. I have not read it yet, but I would. But I don't think I would read books like that in public, because a lot of people see that and they see Hitler and they don't necessarily think, okay, this person is interested in understanding different ideologies. They might more be like, oh, this person's clearly like a Nazi sympathizer. So I feel like there's certain political books that I just wouldn't read in public. Number 4, books about killer animals are almost always trashy. What animal would you least like to be attacked by? Spiders. Specifically, I agree with Ron Weasley. Those spiders from Harry Potter, those giant spiders, are absolutely terrifying. I've always dislike spiders, which sucks because my husband actually quite likes spiders. But I remember as a child specifically when we moved to New Mexico, because I came from Oregon and that's where I was born, and there aren't very many poisonous spiders around there. But in New Mexico, there are quite a few poisonous spiders. So I remember in our garage, we had some black widows, and my mom specifically said, do not go into the corners of the garage. Don't play on the floor. Just be careful because they're very poisonous. And I was like 8 years old at this time, so I was very traumatized by the fact that we had poisonous spiders. We also had scorpions, which were also terrifying. Number 5, trashy books often flourish in specific genres. What's your favorite trashy subgenre? I don't know about subgenre, because I think the trashy genre that comes to mind is always romance, because most romance for me is trash. Yes, you have some highbrow, very sophisticated romance, say Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, but for the most part, modern romance is trashy. But I do love, and I don't read this half as much as I should, but like the urban fantasy romance is absolutely ridiculous, especially like fated lovers. I guess that's more of a trope than a subgenre, but I think it's just so stupid where you have like, oh, a werewolf and he's like somehow tied to the main character and they're like fated to be together. I just think it's so stupid, but it's also kind of addicting to read. So number 6, famous people love to milk their fans by publishing books. Which celebrity would you like to read a trashy novel from? This may be a controversial pick, but I'm gonna go with Donald Trump. Imagine him writing like a trashy romance. Would that not be hilarious to read? He's such a controversial character. No matter what side of the political spectrum you are on, you probably find him pretty ridiculous, to be honest. And I find him just so hilarious to watch. So yeah, I would definitely love to see like him come out with a trashy novel of some sort. I think it would just be hilarious. Number 7, trashy books have the best covers. Which book on your shelves has the trashiest cover? I don't own trashy books. Unfortunately, most of the books, trashy books I do own technically, are on my Kindle, and even those aren't like trashy books. They may be like historical romance, but that's about as trashy as I get. However, I did discover this one, and it's not that trashy because it's like cozy mysteries, but it does have like a I don't know, a half-naked woman on the front. So technically I'd say it's trashy, but this is like a historical Chinese murder mystery series, so not exactly the trashiest. Number 8, trashy books often contain adult themes. What's a book you read before you were old enough to? This is kind of a long story, but my aunt was getting rid of some books, a lot of books, aka an entire trunk full of them, like one of those massive storage containers that go underneath the bed. She had that absolutely filled with books. So she delivered it to my house because she was like, oh, you like mysteries? And I was like, yeah, I love mysteries. And the type of mysteries I would read at the time were like Agatha Christie. And I was probably like 12 or 13 at this time. And so I was really excited when she was like, yeah, I'm getting rid of a bunch of mysteries. So I was like, yeah, give it to me. And the one that I remember specifically reading that I was like, nope, I'm not going to read any more of these books. And I ended up giving them all to the Goodwill. And that was this like book that they had a paperback that half the book was one book, and then you flipped it all over and you had a completely other cover, and it was a completely different book. So there were 2 books in one, and it was Lady Killer / Secret Admirer by Michelle Jaffa. And I remember being traumatized by that. You know, there were some adult scenes, and it wasn't the trashiest of books, especially now with what I've read. I'm like, that was pretty tame. But I remember like I was expecting a murder mystery, and it was very much like a erotic romance with mystery elements, and I found that that was most of the books that she had, or they were very much thrillers, so it wasn't my type of mysteries. Which brings up an interesting point that like just because you like a similar genre to somebody else doesn't mean necessarily you'll like the same books as somebody else. Like even within the fantasy genre, you have like high fantasy with detailed magic systems, and then you have like urban fantasy romance, which is totally 2 different spectrums of one genre. So definitely I learned my lesson that I don't like all mysteries books, but I remember that traumatizing me when I was like 13 or 14 trying to read it. Number 9, if you were a character in a shifter romance, what creature would you want you or your partner to shift into? So I just finished Hunger of the Gods by John Gwynne. Exceptional sequel to The Shadow of the Gods. I highly recommend it, but in that you have slight spoilers, but it's vague enough. You have the dragon god, you have the wolf god, you have the rat god, you have the eagle god, and so now I'm just like, wolves are awesome. Shifting into like a wolf or shifting into a dragon would be like the number 1 shifter, I'd say. These dragons are just so cool anyway, and I think it would be cooler personally to shift into something that doesn't necessarily exist, because yeah, you're a werewolf, you shift into a wolf, you know, that isn't that impressive. But like if you shift into a dragon, that is very impressive. Number 10 is tag the trashiest booktubers you know. The problem is like most of the trashy booktubers that are participating in this have already done this. tag or have been tagged by other people. So I'm not tagging anybody, but I'd be curious what would be some of your answers to these questions, especially if you're not a booktuber. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, like, subscribe. I post every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. I'm getting so good at that outro, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!